Hello, I'm going over the installation of Ubuntu 2004. It's currently February 2021. However, the 2004 version is the stable version of Ubuntu currently until 2022 April, at which point the 2204 version of Ubuntu will be the stable version. But for now, I would stick with 2004 if you want to try Ubuntu. The other versions like 20.10, 21.04 are all short-term support. They don't last very long until you're supposed to upgrade. 2004 is supported for years. Okay, so it's loading. It takes a while the first time sometimes. You can press Control-C to cancel that check if you want. So basically you just put the disk in, and you sometimes have to adjust the BIOS settings in your computer to boot from Ubuntu. You have to or change the boot order. Okay, so I went and got a cup of coffee, waiting for the installer to set up. One thing to keep in mind, it's going to be slower than when it's installed on your computer because it's running off the CD. So we'll click Install Ubuntu. And you could test your keyboard there if you want, or go through the process. Typically, it's the English US if you're in the United States, or you select your whichever one you want to use. It gives us various options. Normal installation comes with basically a lot of stuff. Minimal installation is faster, but it doesn't have like LibreOffice. It doesn't have all the extra games and media players that you might want. So I'd suggest going with the normal if you're new to it, because you won't. If you're new to Ubuntu, then you might not know which apps to install for the media players and to write to convert Word files and so on, email and so on. I usually turn that off during installation, but you could turn that on. It's just updating while you're installing. And this is something I would definitely recommend. Third-party software so that you could play MP3 files. Your graphics hardware, especially if you have NVIDIA, will work a lot better if you use the NVIDIA driver. Realtek Wi-Fi is proprietary, so you'll need that. In some cases, sometimes to get more technical, sometimes it's included in the kernel, but not always. Basically, if you want to work out of the box, use that. So this right here is where it looks for other operating systems. Since I'm on a virtual machine, it doesn't recognize any other operating system, which is fine. I can erase the space allocated to this Ubuntu installation and be okay. If not, then it'll give you an option of installing beside Windows or installing beside whatever else you have, and that's called dual booting. Or you could, if you're more advanced, then you could click on something else. And that's just verifying that what you want is what's been selected. And it is possible to dual boot and keep Windows and use Ubuntu. You just have to reboot every time you want to change operating systems. So this is the correct one for me. And let's say computer's name, that's just if you look at your router and see what devices are connecting, that's how you'd recognize it. So this is, I'm just putting up a random name there. Not random, but it's a generic name for this. You could choose whatever you want, or use the thing that it selects. Okay, and that's basically the installation process. It's going to install. It's going to take probably about half an hour, I would guess, depending on the speed of your CD-ROM and the speed of your computer in general. So we'll just let it go and install. Okay, so the installation has finally finished. My internet speed is slow, so it took extra long, but it's done. So just restart, and then it might ask to take out the CD-ROM. There it goes. So I took out the CD-ROM, or DVD actually, and press enter. And now it's going to start up into a fresh installation, if everything went right. That should have. Okay, so here we are. We're at the login screen. Now, what do we do with this now that we have Linux installed? Well, once it loads, we'll go over a few basic things. It has the setup here. There's settings up in the top right, so let's look at the displays. If you want to change your display, this is where you go about doing it. That's a little better. And so this is the infamous send system info to canonical. It's like Windows telemetry, except you can actually opt out of it instead of only reducing the amount. This is they're taking a survey of what Ubuntu gets installed into. So one of the first things after the help screen that will show up will be the software updater, where it asks you to install software. This is your media player. Firefox, you probably have heard of that. This is the Office Writer, where you could you convert things from Windows. It can open Windows doc files and docx files, Word files, basically. Or you could save it in the default file for that one. And if you want to see what activities or apps you have installed, click on Activities. This is for the GNOME desktop environment, which is default for Ubuntu. but it's not the same for all the Linux distributions. So these are the different things that come with the normal installation of Ubuntu. If you want to update the can't think of the word. If you want to update your operating system, this is where you go. I would recommend right-clicking it once you get it open and add to favorites. That way you don't have to search for it. And that's about it. You just click install. If you want to install other applications, they have a kind of like an ecosystem where everything's been reviewed by Canonical, which releases Ubuntu, and they should be safe to install. Where people get into trouble with Linux is where they install applications from outside, like just random stuff that they download off the internet and install onto their computer. That's just like with Windows. That's not really all that safe unless you really know that unless you really know the application and the website. It's not as safe as just operating within the ecosystem. You can also do updates from this, and you'd click reload there. You can look at what's installed, and you can search for things. Or you can go through the different categories and look for what kind of applications you want. And again, these are all reviewed by Ubuntu's parent company, Canonical. So they shouldn't corrupt your system or anything. And so I've gone over how to install things and how to update, and over here are how to adjust your settings. If you want to add a new user, with the profile that you created when you installed the operating system, you can just that has the administrative or sudo in Linux terms privileges, basically an administrator. Ubuntu itself just uses administrator privileges and not full root access. If you're new to Ubuntu or Linux, don't worry about it. As long as you have the administrator privileges and can remember your password, then you could install things and add users. They have standard and they have administrators that you can use. And go over privacy. Oh yeah, if you want to look at your files, your file browser is right there in the default setup, and you can just go to your different places. And that should be it. They also have a nice little help thing. Let's see what's okay, so it talks about GNOME desktop environment. It talks about how to use the different stuff. And now that's about it. Thank you for watching. This is probably my first video on Rumble. Bye.